find children in my own backyard that have it worse than the kids I saw in Afghanistan. I spent decades fighting for this country, and now it's time to go to D.C. and defend our homeland.
This is what you all are fighting for. So make no mistake about it. I will stand with the working class citizens over all else. If they don't like it, hit the road.
Democrat Richard Ojeda lost his U.S. congressional bid in last week's election for West Virginia's 3rd District. But the race saw the largest swing of Trump voters toward Democrats anywhere in the country. And now he's set his sights on the nation's highest office, announcing a run for the presidency in 2020. West Virginia State Senator and retired U.S. Army Major Richard Ojeda joins us now here in New York. It's an honor to meet you. Thanks for being here.
It's an honor to be here.
So I want to point out to people, you lost your race, but in many ways it was the most impressive race run by a candidate in the country. President Trump won your district by 49 points. You lost by 12. That's a 37-point swing, if my math is correct. What did you say to voters in your district to make that big swing?
I think it comes down to being able to relate with the voters in the district. They know who I am. They know what I'm about. And I'm the type of person that puts boots on the ground. I believe in being accessible to people. I did live videos constantly so that anybody out there, why should a lobbyist have better access to myself than you do? And I think people saw that. And regardless of the fact that, the President of the United States decided to come down there and absolutely campaign against me, I think many people realized what was going on, and they saw, with the things that I've done in the past.
So how did you handle Donald Trump? Because there'd be a lesson in here for a lot of people who are running for president. You voted for President Trump in 2016. You were transparent about that. What changed for you in those couple of years where you said, I actually need to run as a Democrat and run against this guy?
Well, I'm a Democrat, period, and I've always been a Democrat. I believe that, the Democratic Party's got to get back to what being a Democrat truly is, and that's taking care of our working class citizens. I stand with unions wholeheartedly, okay? Taking care of our elderly. Let's stop allowing these people to stick their hand in the cookie jars of Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. Let's protect and take care of our sick. Let's offer a non-addictive form of pain management. I'm in the area where we were the lab rats. They threw their Oxycontin and hydrocodone on our people like candy. So how about, a non-addictive form of pain management versus that? And then also, if you're going to, send people to war and break them, then we're going to fix them when they come home. And that's what I've always been about, and that's what being a Democrat's truly about. And that's the way that I'm going to stay.
The line that jumped out to me the first time I heard you speak, and we heard it again in that ad, is where you said, I saw kids in backyards in West Virginia that were worse off than the kids I saw in Afghanistan. What did you mean by that?
Well, in Iraq and Afghanistan, a village will raise the child. That's a fact. In America today, due to the opioid epidemic, we have mom and dad completely out of the picture. We're talking about they're either dead from overdose, they're in jail, or they're just not there because they're addicted. Grandma and grandpa are trying to raise the children on Social Security. They're already cutting their meds in half. That's where we're at. And I can take you 5 minutes from where I live and show you where children have it worse. And it's one of these things where you retire from the military and you come home. And you realize, I caught a lot of flack because I said I'm sick and tired of hearing that America's the greatest nation because we can whip you. We've got real problems in this country. We have the opioid epidemic. It's just ripped us apart. We have a healthcare system that is absolutely, it's a joke. But a big reason why it's a joke is because the very people that cast votes, the very people that are responsible to try to fix this aren't in that system. They have their own Cadillac healthcare plan. I guarantee you that if every congressman and every senator and the President of the United States fell into the Affordable Care Act, I guarantee you we'd fix it quickly because the decisions that they make, they knew would also fall under their own family. So, that's the issues that we have.
Casey Hunt's in Washington with a question for you. Casey?
It's good to see you, sir. I'm wondering, based on what you've seen on the campaign trail in your own home state, a lot of people like you used to vote Democratic, and in the last election, we've seen them swing hard to President Trump and Republicans. What are Democrats doing wrong? Why is that? And what's the disconnect between, blue-collar working folks in America and the Democratic Party?
Well, I love this question, and I will tell you, I've said this quite a few times. The Democratic Party got away from what being a Democrat was. But here's another thing that they do, and the mistake that they've made, is they place it on money. It's about you got two people running for office, and this guy right here has the most money, and this person here doesn't. But this person here is hungry. They'll knock on every door. They can relate to the people. But the only thing that the Democratic Party was thinking of is, but this person has the most money. So they automatically jump on board with this person. And in the end, the person who doesn't have the most money ends up being drowned out. But then you have the Democrat with the most money running against the Republican that out fundraises him 3-1, and who also gets every commercial on Wheel of Fortune. And in the end, it becomes the lesser of two evil. And that's what we've got. You know, it's always been, well, it's always just the lesser of two evil.
You're running for president, and as a former military veteran, what do you think of the deployment of U.S. troops on the border by Donald Trump?
I think it was a political stunt. That's exactly what this was. I mean, the whole thing right before the midterms about the caravan. You don't hear about it now, do you? It's a political stunt that they use, and they did a great job, because it was the talk of the town all across the United States of America. But right now, we're taking people away from their families and putting them on a border. Are they going to miss Thanksgiving for a political stunt? And that really bothers me. You know, we talk about how we support our veterans, but this is not how you take care of our servicemen and women. That's not how it's done.
By any measure, your candidacy here is going to be considered to be a long shot bid. You've never, as I understand it, you've never been to Iowa, you've never been to New Hampshire. The Democratic field is going to be very crowded, people who have been sort of quietly running for quite some time. How do you break through? Do you run against members, sort of Democratic leadership, as well as Donald Trump? How do you stand out in a field that's going to be crowded and you come in with less name recognition and fewer resources?
Well, you know, first off, in terms of underdog, I've never been anything but an underdog my whole life. But I will tell you that I'm going to do exactly what I did in the congressional race. I'm going to put boots on the ground. I'm going to go out there and actually speak to people. And I think that that's the best way to be. You know, I understand that, you know, there's going to be a big field here, and we're going to have to figure out how we can, you know, let everybody say, okay, to differentiate between the candidates. But I think I can do that. I really believe that I can. I think that I already offer things that the others don't bring to the table. I will tell you this. In 2020, if we continue going and using the same typical models that we've used in the past, then get ready. Get ready for more tears in 2020. It's time for us to get away from that. And I think I bring something completely different.
And just tactically, the way you've addressed Donald Trump, there are some people, there are almost two camps who say a lot of people ignored him in the midterm elections. They believe that worked. Just talk about the economy, talk about health care. And then there's another camp that says in 2020, you've got to be combative. You got to play Trump's game. You got to fight the way he fights, get in the mud with him. What would be your approach to the president?
Now, I'm going to say I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight. But we're not going to be able to beat this guy by being nice. You know, he's not nice. The Republican Party's not nice. You know, it's like we got to stop fighting a battle where our enemy is wearing brass knuckles and we're carrying a pillow. It's time to knuckle up.
Senator Ojeda, it's a pleasure to meet you. Good luck with your run. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.